Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast episode of Steph's ADU and Real Estate Podcast. This is episode 94. And once again, I have another special guest who is in the ADU world. And, I'm really advocating to have other people on the podcast that are not just based out of California. As you guys know, I had a podcast with Chris Moore last week, based out of Denver, Colorado. And we talked about ADUs in Colorado and what's working out there and what's not working. And we learned a lot about the ADU climate in that state. And now we're taking it out to internationally. We have someone on the podcast today who's going to talk to us about what ADUs are looking like on their side of the world. And I'll have them tell us a little bit more about the location and where they're in the space. But first, I'll introduce Yusuf Mohammed, who is here with us today, episode 94. Yusuf is a chief design officer and co-founder of Plumis, where he co-invented Automist, the company's wall-mounted smart fire suppression system. A designer, inventor, and engineer, Yusuf is driven by the belief that good design starts with empathy, curiosity, and a deep understanding of people and problems that it's meant to serve. His work spans fire safety, adaptive technology, and product design. I'll have him talk a little bit more about, his accolades and everything else. But one of the things that I really liked about the bio and just like what you do is the empathy part of it, and this is something that we'll dive into during the conversation. But yeah, nonetheless, thank you so much, Yusuf. Welcome to the podcast.
Amazing. What an intro. Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
Thank you. Yeah, so I didn't give the full bio. So let's tell people a little bit more about who you are, where you're based out of, and how you got into the ADU space.
Okay, well, I guess I'm an engineer by trade. That's where I did my first degree in engineering at Nottingham University some maybe 18 years ago now. And
Wow.
then after graduating, I was actually a little bit disillusioned with engineering because it was very technical, but I didn't really have a way of applying it. So I went and I found a master's called Innovation Design Engineering, and it's a joint course at Imperial College London and the Royal College of Art. And there, what they do, it's amazing what they do. They focus on solving problems, applying your technical skills so you can solve problems for the world. So I just fell in love with the craft, and I've worked in all sorts of industries, everything from doing ambulance design to assistive mobile phones, and I stumbled into the ADU space via fire suppression. So my final year group project was looking at how we can innovate fire sprinkler systems. And one of the things that we came across, and I found quite shocking really, was that if you looked at the patent for a traditional sprinkler, it was created by someone called Thomas Grinnell in 1882. And you compared that design with what's in buildings all around the world, it's mandated by code. It's
Right.
almost exactly the same. And I just thought, wow, surely there's an opportunity to use some of the modern technology that we've got today, so that we can have a different type of solution to meet code that has a different set of attributes and can be applied to a different set of buildings.
Wow. That it's crazy, right? Like how you said you were you just couldn't find your path, right? When you took the engineering side of things and wasn't sure how to apply it to real world. And it's crazy when things come full circle and like, you're passionate about what you do. And it's also tied to what you went to school for. So it's cool to see people who find their purpose and find that niche too that's needed. And fire sprinklers is a big topic, although most people assume it's like whatever, but when we're talking about design, I mean, I see this when I'm doing feasibilities, right? A lot of the big drivers and cost is like new construction. In California is required solar panels. Sometimes they will ask for those fire sprinklers if the main house has it, and that all those little things drive up cost. And so, especially with fire sprinklers, and especially in SoCal, right? Especially with like just everything that's been happening with that happened, yeah, in the Palisades, which we'll talk about. But it's really cool to see how that purpose, came into fruition. And so just to give people a little bit more of a glance of what does ADUs look like in London, right? How did you tap into that space? Is it something that people are building a lot of? Like there's a big ADU community? And what
Yeah,
does that look like?
there is a bit of a movement there, but it's I'd say we'd rather call it a tiny home. Accessory dwelling unit is a very let's say American acronym.
Technical word.
Technical, yeah, absolutely. But the tiny home phenomenon is quite global, and
Right.
the problems associated with installing, fitting, getting planning permission, they have very similar. Um, uh, uh, they come about in a very similar way, regardless of which side of the shores you're on. And what we found is that because it's often an additional unit on a plot that already has one, the infrastructure is typically designed for just one habitable space.
Exactly.
So the constraint which we help to address with our technology is using the existing water, the supply which is there just for one house, and being able to apply that on one unit or perhaps even multiple, because these are the hidden costs. These are the things that people don't consider when you just kind of want to tick the box and just go through the process.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest constraints is exactly that you're building on something that the infrastructure was laid out for whatever was already on that land or on that plot, right? But when you're adding more, especially I'm noticing a lot of this on multifamily, because in California you can add up to 8 detached ADUs or convert 25% of the existing unit count. And with these bigger projects, we run into constraints around utility, right? Having to upgrade utility or having to, upgrade power, and all these things also drive up the cost significantly. I mean, sometimes twice as much. And so, what is it? Why are people building them out there? I mean, most of the time, I know that there's different terminology for it, but at the end of the day, it's there to solve, I think, the middle housing gap, right? So I'm assuming people build it for either family purposes or for rental purposes because, cost of living is what it is. So people kind of have to house hack,
Yeah.
and then density too. I don't know how it is out there, but in California, we don't have a whole lot of land. So the land that we do have, we have to get creative and figure out how to maximize density, but there's all these little things that come into play, right? Fire sprinklers, solar panels, upgrading utilities, and the functionality of it. One of the things that I liked, with your design proposition is empathy, because the reason why people build it, I think, is where we should begin. And then we should build based on that type of living situation. And the functionality should be based on like their living situation and whatever the ADU is going to solve for them.
Yeah. So in terms of the requirements and why people are building, it's very much the same. Trying to find affordable accommodation in
Hmm.
urban areas it's just challenging. The prices are going through the roof. Whether it's you have a lot more people on long-term rents and looking for ways where they can get on the housing ladder for themselves, or
Right.
perhaps perhaps you have a loved one who you want to be close by, but you still want that separation from the main house. So these are the kind of drivers. And when I came to this, let's say, design problem of how can we make it easier to adopt sprinklers, which is in many types of buildings or scenarios they can be required. I was also thinking about how can we redesign the sprinkler from the ground up so that it's something that people want, because we do need these types of devices, particularly when they're being put in perhaps regions where there are wildfire issues, and you don't necessarily want the an internal fire to become an external one, and causing problems that way. So in order to try and make the fire sprinkler desirable, was trying to look at what are the challenges, what are the things that people say, prevents them from wanting them. How do I make a safety device sexy almost?
Right.
And the thing which came up time and time again was that they can often be a trade-off, where sometimes you're removing the fire for flooding damage almost, and why do people have to compromise if we can use modern day technology and apply it in the right way? So one of the things that we wanted to do was tackle that water utility problem by ensuring it could use considerably less water, so 10% of the water of a conventional sprinkler system. And then the side effect of doing that would mean that when it did activate, the water is going to be localized, and it's going to minimize the damage to the property, because you want to protect your space from fire, but you also want to protect your possessions from water.
Exactly. Yeah, it does solve for both issues. I 100% agree. And I know that we have some topics that we wanted to dive into just to help people understand a little bit more about this. And so one of the questions was, what should homeowners, investors, builders, what should they know about fire protection and ADUs?
Okay. So when it comes to ADUs, and we've just started rolling this technology out even in California, and the Automist, which is the name of the product, can be really useful when there is a mandate for sprinklers, and sometimes that can be just from the state, like it is in California, and in other times it can be a requirement from the insurer. Again, perhaps if it's in a wildfire urban interface area, but often if it is required, it might be because it's of a certain size, so perhaps it's over 1,200 square feet, or maybe the distance from the front of the property goes above a certain threshold. So you have all of these triggers that mean you have to have sprinklers installed. So if you are considering an ADU, that's the very first thing to check to see if there's a requirement. Right. And where we can be useful is that typically with a traditional 13D sprinkler system, what you have to do is upgrade your water meter from a 3/4 inch to one with a larger flow to accommodate the flow that is needed. And that can cost, anywhere between 5,000. I've heard of particular regions in California where it can go up to anything to as much as $20,000 just to upgrade the meter, and then also the undergrounds, so the connection from that meter to wherever the property is located. And sometimes there's also even a delay, maybe 4-6 weeks waiting for the utility to go through that process. So this is the issue that we address. And often, sometimes
I hope I'm on the right website too. I'm just kind of
you are indeed.
Okay, great.
So you can see.
It's awesome. I wanted people to just get a visual as you're speaking, so that they can understand, right? Like what it is that we're solving here. You're solving, and people can connect. So you guys do business in Southern California as well.
That's right. Yeah. So we've been working with Ferguson, the plumbing, and they have the showroom business. They're one of our distributors, but you can find on our website kind of how you can contact us. And yeah, we went across to Tiny Fest just recently. And we got
I was there. I didn't go to the one this year, but I've been there every year for the last 3 years. I just didn't go this year.
Okay. No, we had a booth there, and we spoke to a lot of different homeowners.
I know Renee pretty well. She's great.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We spoke to Renee. So I think the first thing about that event is just the community is incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I've worked in fire safety. I've worked in quite a few different industries, but I was quite taken aback by how open people were, not just in terms of being welcome and but also in terms of sharing information and sharing contacts and these sorts of things. So yeah, I think
I don't know how it is
um,
out in London, but here
mm,
everybody is very open to share what's working, what's not working, and just very giving with the knowledge. I mean, I've had a lot of episodes, and I was just talking to someone earlier. I'm like, it's crazy the amount of knowledge that is sitting in these episodes because people just like you, right? They choose to come on here, share their knowledge, and without expecting much in return besides a sense of community and connecting with others to see like what's working. So I love that. Like Tiny Fest is great, and they collaborate a lot with the ADU Academy and just other organizations that we all work with here in SoCal. So it's
yeah,
a small world too, like I was telling
it,
you.
it is indeed. It's I don't know. I guess there's that underlying thought in terms of just to be able to encourage housing. It is universal. It's a universal problem. Everybody needs and should be able
I
to
mean,
have their own property, right?
here in the US, I think we're about 5 million units short nationwide,
Mm,
and in California, about 2 to 3 million. And so I always tell people it's understanding just supply and demand, right? There isn't enough housing for people in the entire US, and even more so in California, right? So the only way to get to 2 to 3 million units, we don't have any more land, so you have to really maximize density with what we currently have. And so the way to get there to those 2 to 3 million is my belief through ADUs, right? Or tiny homes or casitas or whatever you call them, because other states are following. I mean, Arizona just passed their ordinance. As I mentioned, Colorado, Massachusetts, Florida. There's a lot of states that are adopting what's been working in states like Oregon, Washington, California. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it solves for housing, and then it solves for different phases in people's lives. It either people are building it to rent it out or for family members or for assisted living or co-living. But nonetheless, like it provides flexibility for people to be able to do what as they want with their current like assets that they own. And I think a lot of it is just educating people. So that's one of the goals with the podcast is like sharing with people what's working, what's not working, what should you be aware of. And this is a topic that I've never really touched on, which is an important one, because like we talked about, it's important to have community, but it's also important to understand just the tiny little details that get expensive if you don't understand it well. And you may not have to be an expert in, fire protection, but you should have an understanding of how that drives your cost. So, which takes me to the next question. How does fire protection requirements vary by jurisdiction? And just to give people like a glimpse of what that looks like.
okay, so really, it's about following where the sprinkler mandate is. So in California, if the main house has sprinklers, then you are required for the ADU to have it.
Right.
That is also true in parts of Maryland. We've done a lot of installations in Colorado, Montana, and there are certain other jurisdictions. Really, the only way to really be able to tell is to speak to the local AHJ. And I think when it comes to ADUs, um, just at the earliest possible time to try and find an expert who can kind of just take you through what the requirements are and exemptions. And from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, there can be some variance in whether the coverage is required or not. So it's not 100% clear always. So you just kind of have to have that conversation early on.
Yeah. I mean, we usually will refer to the state law. And I think as long as, the main house doesn't have sprinklers, the ADU doesn't have to. But if they considered adding, let's say, this type of Automist, what is like the price range and the process? You touched a little bit on the process, but what does it look like if they were considering maybe replacing that old fire sprinkler system to what you guys offer?
Okay, so it works. What you would need is you would need a layout plan, so a drawing of the
Mm-hmm.
proposal for your property. The first thing is always to kind of check with your AHJ whether or not it's required, and once you've done that, you can forward that to our team. We have reps based in and around the US, and indeed Ferguson can kind of help you with that. Once you've sent them a layout plan, they can give you a price, just to give you a kind of a sense of how much it could cost. Yeah, so I guess it really depends on the size of your ADU, but it could be
Let's say a
anywhere.
500 square foot ADU, which is, your typical garage conversion.
Garage conversion. No, I'm not great at prices because it usually goes through Ferguson. So I don't want to say the wrong price and
Yeah.
and then kind of get collared by my team. But I think the best way, the easiest way to think about this is the product can come out cheaper than a traditional sprinkler if there is a tapping fee and a utility connection as well.
Got it.
As in terms of material, if you just compare a traditional sprinkler with our technology, there is a premium, but it's the utility cost that you can save by going with it. So that's where you can find the saving. So that's also something to uncover when you're considering our technology.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I think that's good because at least it gives people a sense of like, does it cost more? Does it cost less? We know that obviously it's a much newer technology, so that's good. But the cost is usually the driver for people. So I know sometimes even a range would be helpful, but if people are interested, they can connect with you guys and you guys can assess it and give a fair proposal, right, on what that looks like, which is totally fair. My other question that I had was why water supply can become the cost driver, which we've also kind of touched on a little bit, but I'd like for you to share your take.
Yeah, so it really is down to this water meter. It's this 3/4 inch water meter which has the pressure and the flow for one
Right.
house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's speaking to the utility company, and they need to expand the size of the water meter, and then they often have to run these undergrounds. So we've done about 200 different ADUs in Boulder, Colorado, and the primary driver was to help avoid this particular problem. We've even been working with a few modular home builders, and they like it
I
because
need to
they
connect you with Chris. I'm not sure if you connected with him yet, but I had him on the podcast last week, and he does. He's a contractor and he builds ADUs not all through Colorado, but I think near Denver. But he's in Colorado, so I'll connect you guys.
So we're even going to be at the ADU Academy event in Denver.
Oh yeah, in Denver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to be at the next one there. So yeah, we've got
say hi
some folks
to say hi to what's his name?
Cal? Is it? Not Cal. What's the guy's name?
Yes, Cole.
Cole.
Yeah. Yeah, say hi to Cole for me. That's a great event, by the way. If you guys are in Denver, make sure you guys go to that ADU Academy because you learn a lot about design, construction, real estate, and financing. But it's good to meet people like you who really have a specific niche that is needed right in the space. And yeah, I think you're right. It does become a cost driver because of that. And another question that I had was how targeted water mist differs from these traditional sprinklers, which I think you kind of also touched on earlier. But if you want to give a little bit more clarity on that.
Yeah, let me give you the rundown. So the way in which traditional sprinklers work is they have a mechanical glass bulb. So on the ceiling, you'd have a nozzle, and it has this element that when it gets up to a high temperature, it bursts, and then the pump senses that pressure drop, and then basically you just have water cascading down. Now, the way we do things is that we have a nozzle which is mounted in the wall. Most of the time it's just dormant, it just sits there. If your smoke alarm goes off, it starts to scan the room with an infrared sensor. It basically is looking for a hot spot that just shouldn't be there. And then only if it confirms the presence of a dangerous fire do we turn on a pump. And think of it a bit like a pressure washer. Do we use for small droplets right into the base of the fire. So instead of sort of gallons and gallons of water cascading, we're talking about targeting a specific location with small droplets of water. So this is the way in which our technology works. And one of the major benefits of using this sensing technology as opposed to that glass bulb is it can operate between 2 and 14 times faster. So we've done a lot of installations in the UK for vulnerable individuals. It might be you've got a loved one aging in place, and you know, having a system that will give them the highest level of protection is one of the selling points.
Yeah, I'm seeing some videos here. I'm seeing some videos here on like what it does when it senses that temperature, which is pretty cool. And we'll share this in the clips, but make sure you guys also go to the website because they have some pretty cool videos that literally showcase what the how it works once it detects, you know, that heat. I'm looking at some of the videos here on the website. Pretty cool stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it took us a very long time.
Yeah, and maybe it's something like I think there's ways that you and I can collaborate because, you know, we have vendors that we also offer. Like during the feasibility, after the feasibility is done, we move on to design and construction. And during that phase, we may need, like I said, a solar company. If it's new construction, they need solar panels. So we offer that. If they want an interior designer, we also offer that. If they need management services to place a tenant, we help them with that. So this is just like another added service that we could share with our clients and say, hey, if your main house already has the fire sprinklers, it may be worth taking a look at, you know, and for anybody listening too, right? If you're kind of in this scenario and you have maybe fire sprinklers, you have an outdated system and you're thinking of building an ADU, more than likely the city might call out that you also need fire sprinklers for your ADU. So it's worth like considering having just a newer technology system throughout both the main house and the back house, because if you're going to upgrade, might as well do it during that phase of the build out, right? Which I'm assuming is kind of like how you guys work with a lot of maybe contractors or design and build companies.
Yeah, that's right. So we train and accredit a number of different so sprinkler contractors. We've been working directly with builders themselves. It's really straightforward system to deploy because we use flexible hose instead of sort of the fixed piping that's kind of filled with water, and that even in itself can have some benefits because with traditional sprinkler pipe, it's always loaded with water. So if you're in an area that's susceptible to freezing, then you need to insulate it, or sometimes you need to add antifreeze, and that can have a cost associated with it. But because this hose is dry until the pump turns on, you don't have that same concern. So it could also offer some peace of mind there in terms of removing the risk of leaks.
I love that. Have you guys had the opportunity to work in any of the fires that we had in LA, Palisades, Altadena? Have you guys worked with homeowners there who are rebuilding?
So we're just completing our first installation in California in Manhattan Beach. That's meant to conclude next week. So excited about that. We've got another one which is going in Bishop, and
I love surfing Manhattan Beach and
you have some great locations in California. So I've had been able to kind of dot around and but at the moment, we're working with a couple of home builders. We're looking at two properties in LA. I'm not sure if it's county or city.
Mhm.
So, we're still in the early days in terms of California, but we've had some good interest and we're just kind of beginning that process. So that involves part of the reason that we can do that is because the product has been UL listed, which is a big sort of certification or a test. It took us
Mhm.
7 years to complete,
Wow.
going through that from start to finish, but really had to kind of put it through its paces and make sure that it could perform for a variety of different fires and scenarios.
And I love that you said Manhattan Beach because it brought up, I'm assuming like a lot of the people who are open or aware to this type of technology is probably people who aren't in so much of a tight budget, or just have like the awareness around the cost of different things. And so it'd be cool to see like some high-end projects that implement this technology. Is that what you guys are doing for the one in Manhattan Beach? Because I mean, Manhattan Beach
Yeah,
is a high high entry
yeah.
point there.
I think it's funny. One of the things that I find interesting about the tiny home space is, when I think about um, architecture and properties which set trends, I think of like super high end, but at the same time, I also think of tiny homes. I think I can't remember what the name of the channel is, but I've always watched this guy in New Zealand who, what's the guy's name?
I don't know.
But he has a channel basically, and he's always like featuring different types of tiny homes. But the amount of innovation and attention to detail when it comes to designs, the amount of personality that you can kind of put into construction. People consider everything and really look to kind of maximize every single square inch of the
Right.
property. That's one of the aspects that I really like about the tiny home space and the movement. And I see so many lessons and things that you can learn even just from and apply to much larger buildings, which have stemmed from ideas that have just kind of come about from tiny living in general.
Yeah, and vice versa. I've seen a lot of ADUs, that are high end in Manhattan Beach, Malibu, or even like Newport Beach. And a lot of these ADUs are like a mini replica of like the main custom home that's sitting
Mm.
in the front, right? And so it's crazy because I service mostly beach areas. So all of like Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, and also Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach. So I see like the low end side of ADUs, a low garage conversion, just simple basic finishes is somewhere between 150 to 200,000. But I've seen people also get very fancy with like high end technology and finishes and paying 500 a square foot, and building 500,000 for a 500 square foot ADU. So
Wow.
it caters to everybody because ADUs could be for a first-time home buyer who wants to build an ADU to rent out the ADU to help them offset that expensive mortgage, right? It
Mm.
could also be for family members, and it could also be on the high end for people who want it for recreational purposes. I mean, people are building in-house pickleball courts or homeschooling offices, or, like on the high end side of things, they get very creative. And I feel like this product is definitely one to capture that audience's attention because they want all the smart home gadgets, right? Like this type of sprinkler system, or not sprinkler system, but what is it called? Like
It's an
technology.
Automist, but yeah, technology.
Yeah, Automist technology, along with like, what I've seen too is like those what is that thermostat that's like the Nest, the
The
Nest,
Nest one.
the Nest
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thermostat, so it's kind of cool to see where things are evolving, but you definitely see it hit on the high end and then, other markets follow. So that's pretty cool. Amazing. Well, I think I learned so much, and I will definitely be sharing this episode with a lot of my personal clients
Oh,
and
amazing.
obviously with all the guests here who are listening in. How can people connect with you guys? I know I shared the website, but if people wanted to just have a conversation with you to talk about the product and maybe get a bid for their project or their property, what does that process look like?
Okay, so the best place to go is to go to the website. It's automist.us. You'll find on there's a section called Speak to an installer. And if you
I
just
love
put in
that.
your details there, we'll connect you either with a rep who's based within your area, and then it will also give you the contact details of a Ferguson representative as well, so they can help you out. We just ask where you're based, if you're a homeowner, an architect, and then we'll feed you to the right person and be more than happy to kind of talk you through. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Yusuf. Joseph is my brother's name, so
Oh.
it was easy to remember yours. So I thank you so much for taking the time. I don't know what time it is out in London, but I'm sure
It's not too bad. It's 9 o'clock. It's 9 p.m. So,
okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'm
good.
gonna be in Barcelona in July. I'm going out there for the California Institute Legislation Conference. So,
right, okay.
yeah, I'm just wanting to get a little bit more involved on the legislative side of things because, policy is where it begins. And that's kind of like how you see it, affected at the local level. So I will be somewhere on that side of town. Maybe we can connect while I'm out there. It's not too close to you, but at least it's on that side of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know you come out here a lot. It seems like you'll be at the academy. So whenever you're out on this side of town, definitely let me know. I host a lot of meetups as well, so I can connect you with other people as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for giving me the time and the opportunity to share what I know. If you ever make it to London way, you're more than welcome. We'll show you the factory, we'll show you around.
I don't think it's that far from there, so I may just take the trip,
Hey, pop over. We'd love to host you. But yeah, honestly, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who listened in. We'll see you guys next week.